Okay, good morning, folks. Hope y'all doing well this morning. It's bright and early on a Tuesday morning, 7th of October. Happy Tuesday. Woke up early this morning so I could look at all this data. Spent the past hour looking over everything. A lot to talk about today in the tropics as well as in the Continental U.S., where we have the potential, and it looks like we're about to have a tropical depression, at least out here in the South Central Atlantic, forecast to develop into a tropical storm. I know it hasn't developed yet, but it's at a 90% chance, and it looks quite healthy at the moment. Although there's a little remnant vorticity down here, right to its southwest, which is interesting. And there's some shear coming this way, but that's likely aiding in the divergence, at least equatorward of the system, and you have it looks quite healthy at the moment anyway, and you have a general anticyclonic flow going this way. So, that being said, it forecast moves generally this way, and whether it's going to impact the Caribbean islands at this point is hard to say. But looking at the upper level winds, you can see that the westerlies are just screaming right here. So, likely curve up this way. All right, and we'll show you what the National Hurricane Center 2 update says. Any of this other area here, right on the Yucatan Peninsula right now, associated with a trough of low pressure that's forecast to move generally this way, and small chance of development as it goes in the southern Bay of Campeche and eventually moves on land. I'd say there's a better chance of having something developing in the Pacific than up here, but um, either way, it's already producing a lot of rainfall for central Mexico right now. So here's the latest National Hurricane Center 2 a.m. update. 90% chance of development in the next 7 days, 80% in 2 days. Like I said, I won't be surprised if we either get depression or storm sometime today, and this other system has a 10% chance of developing. And we're talking about the Eastern Pacific right here. Yeah, Priscilla and Octave. Oc- I think I'm saying that right. Priscilla and Octave. And that disturbance associated with that disturbed weather generally in this area. So here's a close-up satellite view, the water vapor image of this disturbance here on the Yucatan Peninsula. I have an upper level trough here with a general high pressure right over this system here. You can see it's on onshore right now, so likely leading to heavy rainfall right now in this area. So again, forecast to generally move in this direction. And we get quick spin ups out here in the Bay of Campeche, and the Gulf. So you can never rule something like this out. But um, moving on to AL 95, 95L. This is the true color and shortwave IR loop. I know it's kind of glitching at the end here, but I'm not sure why it does that. But quite healthy there. I'm going to stop it so it stops doing that. See it right there? Generally expanding outflow aloft. Moving to the west quite quickly here. And you see that little vorticity right down here. Very small though. Uh, I don't think that's going to impact the system development, but you never know. If you switch to the water vapor, it's not glitching. So there's some dry air out to its west here, but it seems to be holding its own um, as it moves to the west. All right. So I wouldn't be surprised if the National Hurricane Center also sends a plane out here to investigate this. It's getting close enough to the Caribbean that they should be able to do that shortly. Um, so let's move on to the model guidance. This is the Google DeepMind. um, Starting today, quite a few members still want to bring it over the northern Lesser Antilles, right? And then over time, some of them are very strong, right? See the pinks there. Um, Not very many want to make it to Bermuda, so I still think there's a good likelihood for this to develop into a hurricane somewhere up in here. Okay. Another Google DeepMind GenCast model ensembles. Roughly the same thing. Pretty good agreement up to this point, and more spread as we get further out. You can see there's an extratropical type um, system off the East Coast supposed to develop later in the period, and you see it doesn't do much in the Caribbean, the Western Caribbean here, Yucatan, as far as the Atlantic goes. Maybe the Pacific. A few members here. See that there? So it moves it generally to the northwest. This is the European ensemble. There's definitely more support for the European ensemble here, somewhere in the Yucatan Peninsula or into the extreme northern East Pacific here, right along the Mexican coast, and that system potentially developing off the Florida coast. All right. Some members want to take 95L a little further west. Some want to curve it out to sea. I think, and then it wants to bring another disturbance, the 13th, which is 6 days from now, out here in the tropical Atlantic. Not a lot of members in agreement there, but there's quite a few, which is interesting. And later in the period, wants to maybe develop something off in the Western Caribbean again. Go back in time here. Let's go 12 hours. All right, so quite a lot of agreement that something might develop here just in the extreme south, um, Bay Campeche, or in the Eastern Pacific with the European ensemble. Okay, but focusing on this one here, you see this again. There's the majority of the members to the north of the Caribbean islands. So, and lastly, the GFS pretty much agrees with the European about possible development here in the Yucatan Peninsula in the next couple of days. If it does develop, it'll likely go on shore and it won't do much. And it also has this probably extratropical system maybe developing here on the southeast coast. And this AL95, 95L, some members just the northern Caribbean islands, Lesser Antilles, and then a lot of uncertainty after that. Okay. So now let's look at the potential tracks here. This is, if I can get to it. This is the model track guidance from Tropical Tidbits. You have the different models here. You have the HAS A, B, all the different hurricane models, and the globals. Some of the hurricane models want to take it further to the west, and then the other more the global models, a lot of them take it further to the right. So that being said, the ensemble, the whole mean of this is north of the Caribbean islands, right? But still remains to be seen. Okay, I know I keep saying that. It remains to be seen all the time, but we got to need to get initialization on the center before we can really start tracking this closely. Okay, I know I'm switching between windows here. This is a model intensity guidance. The current model intensity guidance for 95L. See the highest end models or the hurricane models want to really bring it up to either Cat 4 or Cat 5. Some of the other models don't do much with it at all, or low end tropical storms. So quite a bit of uncertainty there. This is the Canadian ensemble output, um, GPS. You see the center line of the all the Canadian ensembles take it clear of the Lesser Antilles. And there's the GFS. This is the GFS ensembles. We showed you that earlier on Weather Nerds, but we also see some of the models in Northern Caribbean, but the center line the average is clear to the north. Now, depending on how large the system is, we could still have impacts here, but and given that there's still some members that keep it to the west here a little further and then recurve it this way, we can't rule that out, but the majority are to the right of Bermuda. Okay. Next, I'm going to go over all the different individual model tracks and intensity guidance. Here, my computer locked up, so I have to start this over. Back to the model guidance comparison here. We have the European showing depression getting going here north of the Caribbean islands. Really nothing of consequence other than a lot of rain in the Yucatan Peninsula in the Bay of Campeche. Then you have 95L, which would be Jerry eventually, look likely being a tropical storm at this point. And you have that low developing off the east coast. And I would almost argue it becomes tropical eventually. So we're gonna have to look into that some more. All right. There's another way to look at the European 850 millibar cyclonic vorticity, which is right there. 500 millibar steering flow and 200 millibar wind. Okay. The barbs there, little wind barbs, you see them, different speeds and stuff and directions. And you can see, put Epic Pen back up, it crashed too. All right, there it is. Oops. Well, that's not going to work either. So, oh boy. All right. So, moving through time, you see it right there. Doesn't really get that coherent or strong, right? And you have the vorticity associated with this system off the coast here. Really wants to develop, right? And that moves out to sea. 95L does. And a lot, that system in the Bay of Campeche goes on the shore there. And the Euro wants to develop high pressure to the north or something and bring this system back to the southeast. Interesting evolution there. We'll see what happens. What's ERAI do to 95L and these other systems? It has a bunch of moisture down here in the Bay of Campeche. 95L is down here. All right, with 95L and its associated moisture just north of the Caribbean Island is a weak tropical storm potentially. Doesn't really develop it much at all. Okay, but uh, for this time of year, off the northeast here, potentially strong system here. So have to look at that closer. What does the Canadian show? Tropical storm shortly. 1,004 millibar. I would think it'd be a tropical storm, or at this point, moving to the north, the Lesser Antilles, and moving to the east of Bermuda. And the Canadian wants to develop this system more off the east coast than the other models, right? And you have this system out here, maybe developing another one in the tropical Atlantic. Okay. Excuse me. What's the icon do? It has maybe a tropical depression developing, weak one. For the Yucatan, just a bunch of moisture moving on shore there. Doesn't really develop this system here. But this system off the East Coast, all models want to develop something. So definitely going to get something going here. We'll just have to see how that evolves. The GFS is the most bullish of these solutions, and as it usually is, but you can't discount this. And all the hurricane models by National Hurricane Center are based on GFS, so it's not surprising they are as bullish like this as well. And if you look at the upward dynamics associated with this, you don't have a lot of wind shear with it, and you have somewhat of a high pressure loft, although you have some winds impinging on it. Possibly a favorable trough interaction with the divergence here. Showing this here, right? So evacuation of mass leads to um, lift, which leads to convergence of the surface and strengthening. So, all right. So we move into the HWARF. There's another hurricane model. Here's the Lesser Antilles. Want to strengthen it quite a bit, and the moisture associated with this, you can see, has a pretty coherent system with not a lot of dry air being entrained until it moves further to the north here. Not even then. Okay. HWRF parent, this shows this view as well. Okay. Still can't rule out impacts to the Caribbean, Lesser Antilles. That's another view of it. And HMON is one that really is really wanting to um, get dry air entrained into it. Right, it has a lot of moisture surrounding it. Tries to strengthen it, then it entrains some dry air, and the Lesser Antilles weakens it quite a bit. Don't do much with it after that. Okay, I'd say this can't rule this out either. This is a half say. This is a representation of the half say. That what it thinks the system is going to look like as it moves through the Caribbean islands. All right, we'll switch to the radar, potentially bringing impacts to the Lesser Antilles. But you can see there are bunch of dry air on its western side here. Not too bad, but you can see much more moisture on the right side of it. Half say parent. This is more of a outlook of the winds aloft. Okay, so high pressure aloft over the system. as it moves to the north here, wants to strengthen it. And then you get the upper level westerlies maybe impinging on it, and drier air getting into it maybe some. See on the south side here and on the eastern side as well. And eventually interact with this system off the east coast in some way. Okay, so have speed model, another hurricane model. It's wanting to get it going here, but then kind of moves it to the west a little bit, further west, right by the Caribbean islands here, and some drier air to its west. Manages to remain coherent and really get a structure going and really deepen. This model wants to make it arguably a Cat 4 hurricane at this point. So, and there's a half-speed parent representation of the upper level flow. Quite a bit of favorable outflow with the system, right? You see the winds generally evacuating mass, although there's some light winds maybe coming in on it from the western side. Dry air to the west here as well, but it manages to maintain its core. So that's likely part of the reason why it's strengthening. Okay. So that's all I got for this, guys. Next, I'm going to go over the Continental U.S. forecast. I have the Continental U.S. Satellite loop here. We're going to focus on mostly the East Coast event the best we can, um, and the differences I'm seeing in model guidance between the two global models here. But as far as current conditions, we have moisture streaming up generally this way, right? And that's where the most convection is occurring, even though the higher coated cloud tops aren't there. You see the deeper reds and oranges here. Most of the was more like low to mid-level clouds, all right? But we pull up the radar. Rainfall ongoing here in the Mississippi Valley, just to the west of the Appalachians, and into the Ohio Valley, and into the middle part of the country as well, and into Florida. That persistent easterly flow bringing showers onshore, and not a lot else going on for the rest of the country, right? Um, when we look at the current radar on weather-wise, looking at the same thing here, right? As we move into the excessive rainfall outlook for today, take the radar off. You can see you have a slight risk for excessive rainfall. New Mexico, surrounded by marginal risk, a large slight risk along the mid-Mississippi Valley, Ohio Valley, and marginal risk surrounding it, and a small marginal risk along the southeast coast of Florida. This rainfall eventually, this is through 12Z today. I always forget to say that. And then for the rest of today and tomorrow, um, marginal risk in the desert southwest. Stays there again for day 3, which is Thursday along the southeast coast. Then you go day 4. Again in the desert southwest with this moisture from Priscilla streaming upward. Okay. And you have your other tropical systems out here potentially developing, right? But moisture from Priscilla is likely to reach back up into the desert southwest. And you have this impending moisture incoming from potential system out here off the southeast coast. And you can see where the slight risk excessive rainfall is again for day 5, which is Thursday. Okay. Off the North Carolina coast, South Carolina coast, and parts of Virginia. And this is probably going to change based on what model guidance comes in agreement on. And in the desert Southwest. All right. So, looking at severe weather, move back to severe weather for today. Marginal risk here in the western part of the U.S., desert Southwest, general thunderstorms in the rest of the continental U.S., driven by wind and hail risk. Low tornado risk, less than 2%. Categorical for day 2, which is tomorrow. No significant severe weather expected. And for day 3, no significant severe weather expected for that day either. What the rainfall total is going to look like for the coming days. Let's look at day 1. That's today. Most rainfall in that area where I show the excessive rainfall outlook for today. Into the desert Southwest as well, New Mexico. It moves further eastward here and along the southeast coast of Florida, where we talked about, in desert Southwest. And for day 3, you can see the potential building along the southeast coast again, and that moisture from Priscilla streaming up into Arizona, the system off the west coast. All right. So, what are national hazards? Okay, current hazards. Sorry about that. Winter weather advisory. No. Yeah. Winter weather advisory all up in here in the northern tier. Right. And so I can tell that might be freeze warnings. It's hard to really tell with the colors there, but the purple indicates cold weather. Most likely, sorry, um, freeze warnings. Dense fog advisory here with all the moisture left over from a system moved through yesterday. Have a severe thunderstorm warning here in this small little area. Can't even see it. And flood watch with a small area here, right? But all in all, not a lot going on. The freeze warning up here. That's say goodbye to your crops if you still got them out there. So I'm going to go through all the different things I normally do. Then I'm going to talk about the system on the East Coast. If y'all want to stay for that, this is a national temperature outlook for the next several days. You see where the warmest temperatures are. I'm going to go through this real quick here. This is today, 8 p.m., tomorrow, 8 p.m., maximum temps. You see the warmer air building into the central part of the country again. You see where the most moisture is here in the southeast, right? Cooling off, and you have another potential cold front moving through the northern tier with warmer temps building back in the Midwest, Ohio Valley, and staying relatively cool on the northeast coast and southeast coast. Well, southeast, sorry. Let's say another wedge building in, or just cloud cover, you know. Minimum temps, you see it freeze watches. It's below freezing up here. Quite cold. See where the coldest temps are. Warming up for the middle part of the country, high plains. And wow, up here in the northeast, going to be below freezing, right? Friday, Friday morning, Saturday morning, cools not quite as cold, but 50s, 60s for generally most of the country. For lows, 40s, 30s up on the extreme northern New England and in the Intermountain West. Still quite cold in the Intermountain West, which is not unusual this time of year. Ooh, in the 20s, teens, 40s in Colorado, and they get quite cold up here. Whew, that's cold for this time of year, even for wow. Okay, but anyway, the warmest temps, as you can see, overnight lows is in the plains, Kansas City, Oklahoma City. Warmest temps in the 60s in the desert Southwest, along the Gulf Coast and on the coastline here. So, and the system off the southeast coast here, um, I see significant model differences right now in development of the systems. Right, so I'm going to compare the European um, little explanation here. You have the European precip type and pressure on the top, and same with the GFS. Okay, then you have the 500 millibar heights, which is shows the general steering flow, right? When we start off this, the 500 millibar solutions are roughly the same, right? And we move through to about 108 hours out. You can see they both want to develop a system off the coast here, right? Which they're in pretty good agreement on. But you see the European um, and generally the same, but you have the GFS has a much stronger vortex here than the European does, right? It has this kind of a split thing going on here. Well, a more defined vortex here. And they move through time on the European solution. These two phase down here. You see what happens, right? But in the GFS solution, it happens a lot further north, okay? And you get further on here, the European develops a high pressure, and so does the GFS, but further north, and pushes that system back down, right? Whereas because the GFS moves it further north and phases with this other energy, right? It takes it out to sea. If we look up at the European up here, this is your low pressure here, right? And move through time, what happens to it? It moves back through the southeast. And if the euro is right, which I tend to side with the euro because the GFS tends to have a bias towards vorticity in general, and the euro is well, in my mind, the most reliable model out there. So quite a difference in solutions. You see where the GFS has it here, and this is 14 October, 7 days from now, and the euro has it here. So, and you can see surface high pressure here, and you can't really see it. It's more off this way. So, quite a difference in solutions here, and much more pronounced high pressure aloft when we look at this. And this has a trough like further east, which is keeping high pressure from building over the top of this thing at the mid levels. So that's my analysis of that for today. We're going to get deeper into it tomorrow. Hopefully, the models will be in a little better agreement on that, but I wanted to explain a little bit. Hope you'll have a great day.